Here, sign this immediately and submit it. My mother-in-law's voice was sharp as she suddenly appeared, slapping a divorce petition onto the table in front of me. My son, who earns $150,000 a year, came home to an empty house while his wife was off on a business trip. A wife should follow her husband. That was her justification for wanting to break us up. Calmly, I smiled and replied, "Oh, are you sure about this? Thank you. I'm so happy. This feels like a blessing." Don't pretend. "You'll regret what you're saying," she said, a triumphant smirk on her face. My smile widened. "We'll see who has the last laugh, won't we?" A month passed. I was in a sunlit room in my parents' house, having just finished a translation deadline for a foreign company's manual on my laptop. Great. I've secured a large portion of my income for this month, I thought. I sighed and leaned back deeply in my chair, rolling my neck to ease the stiffness. This had been my daily routine since I left my job at the county clerk's office, taking on projects from various clients. It wasn't stable, but there was a joy in working at my own pace. The silence was shattered by a series of frantic, angry rings from the doorbell. It wasn't a casual ding-dong, but a furious, sustained press. Who could that be? My mom called from the living room, though I already had a feeling. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath to calm myself. It had been a month since that day, and I knew this moment would come. When the door opened, my mother-in-law's harsh voice echoed through the house. "Where is she? Where is that woman? Get out here right now. We're settling this today." As I came out of my room, I saw her trying to force her way into the house without taking off her shoes, while my smaller mother tried to hold her back. They were like two mismatched opponents in a bizarre tug-of-war at the doorway. "Stay out of this. I need to talk to Amelia. Do you have any idea what your daughter has done?" "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you shouting here so early in the morning?" I asked calmly. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed like a predator spotting its prey. Her face flushed with anger. "How dare you be so calm? Do you know what's happening to our lives? The power is about to be cut off. The water bill is past due. We can't even pay for the natural gas. The landlord called too. We're 2 months behind on rent. This is all your fault." "What? What's going on? Explain yourself," she demanded, her voice trembling and tears welling in her eyes. My own mother shrank back against the wall, frightened. "Hold on. Please take off your shoes first if you want to talk properly. Be quiet. Your daughter destroyed our family. David has lost the will to live. He just stares into space all day. He's not going to work. He won't even leave the house. He's been like this ever since you left, Amelia." "Mom, are you okay? I'll handle this. Could you please make some tea?" I nodded slightly to my mother and guided my mother-in-law to the living room. Despite the worry on her face, my mom quietly left. In the living room, we sat facing each other across the coffee table. The tension was thick enough to freeze the air. My mom had prepared 2 cups of tea, and the steam rose in straight lines, mirroring the gravity of the situation. "Explain yourself. Why did all the payments stop the moment you were gone?" Her voice was filled with blame, confusion, and anxiety. She was clearly bewildered by the change in her son. I took a deep breath and picked up a folder of documents I had placed nearby. I had been preparing this for a long time. "Ma'am, I'm going to tell you the truth. The fact is, I was the one paying for everything. The household expenses, utilities, and even the rent. David hasn't contributed a single cent because he doesn't have a job. He's been unemployed for over a year. What nonsense is this? David pays for everything. He tells me he brings home his salary every month. You're the one who just sits around the house, aren't you? You don't even take care of the house. You're just always fiddling with your computer. You have the nerve to lie after taking advantage of my son. You should be ashamed." "This isn't a lie. I have evidence." I pulled out copies of my bank statements and payment receipts. The documents, neatly arranged in a clear folder, proved the payments for the last 6 months. Each one had a sticky note explaining what the payment was for. "Please, take a look at this. This is my transaction history for the past 6 months. All the payments came from my account. First, here is the receipt for the monthly rent of $1,800. I pay this to the landlord on the 4th of every month. Next, the electric bill from ComEd, around $250 a month. The gas bill is about $90, especially in the winter. The water bill is paid every 2 months, about $220, not to mention the internet, our cell phone plans, and food delivery services. Everything came from my account. My mother-in-law took the documents and glared at them. As she flipped through the pages, her face was a mask of disbelief. These are easy to fake. I'm sure David paid for everything. My son's annual income is $150,000. He's a manager at a major logistics firm. Your little income is just for pocket money, isn't it? Even though I work from home, I have a decent job. I work as a translator and a data entry specialist. With all my projects, I earn nearly $9,000 a month. Here are copies of my contracts, and this is proof of the payments deposited into my account. It's all documented. I laid out the papers one after another. I had been preparing this for months, knowing this day would come. I don't believe you. You're a liar. You're just a freeloader, a burden on my son. David said you did nothing but work for yourself. You couldn't even take care of him. He said he was supporting you, but you have no gratitude. He works until late every night, even on weekends, and all for a woman like you. I will not accept this. Her voice rose, trembling with rage. It was her denial of a reality that was about to shatter the world she believed in. Because of her shouting, my mother peeked in from the other room. Her eyes showed a desire to protect me, but she couldn't speak up to the older woman. I signaled to her that I was okay. Ma'am, I understand how you feel. The desire to believe in your son, the refusal to doubt his words, that's normal. But feelings can't change facts. We were living on the money I earned. If you really want to know the truth, let's ask David himself. My mother-in-law was momentarily stunned, but her bravado quickly returned. Yes, that's a good idea. Let's call David and expose your lies. My son is my pride. I won't let a woman like you ruin him. Fine. Let's the three of us talk. Prepare yourself, ma'am, because when we do, all the lies will be revealed. That was her last word before she stood up. She looked like she wanted to say more but held back and quickly left. When the door closed, silence returned. My mom entered the living room hesitantly. Are you okay, honey? She was so angry. I'm fine, Mom. It's almost over now. I smiled faintly, recalling my mother-in-law's furious face. When the truth comes out, who will be the one to truly regret it? That day was coming very soon. On Saturday afternoon, the three of us gathered in our old living room. Myself, my mother-in-law, and David. The air was heavy, and no one wanted to speak first. My mom had left to give us privacy. On the table were the pieces of evidence I had prepared, and a file David had brought with him. My mother-in-law broke the silence first. Unlike the other day, she was calm now. All right, let's clear everything up. No more beating around the bush. David, you speak first. Your wife is spreading rumors that you don't have a job. Explain yourself properly. David sat with his arms crossed, looking exhausted. He had dark circles under his eyes and was poorly shaven, but today he wore a crisp suit. He glanced at me briefly before sighing. I don't understand. Why are you lying, Amelia? I'm the one who pays for all the expenses, right? Since we got married, I've been supporting this family. I work overtime every night. I even go in on weekends. His voice was a mixture of weariness and resentment. He chose his words carefully, occasionally glancing at his mother for her reaction, playing the victim in an unjust situation. That's right. I know how hardworking you are. I see you leave for work in a suit every day. You leave at 7 a.m. and come home at 9 or 10 p.m. Even on weekends, you leave for important meetings and come home exhausted. You're the one at fault, Amelia. You have a terrible character to make my son look bad. As his mother spoke, David produced a thick file. On the cover, Household Expenses 2024 was written in neat handwriting. Here are the expense receipts, credit card history, bank withdrawals, it's all here. All paid from my account. Are you going to look at it, Amelia? Or are you going to keep lying? He opened the file and pointed at the entries. Inside, fake bank statements, credit card bills, and payment receipts were neatly organized. Look, electricity, $420. Gas, $565. Water, $455. Communications, $788. Rent, $1,800. Groceries, about $1,000. $500. It's all in my name. I'm the one who set everything up with the utility companies and the real estate agency. You're just listed on the account. My mother-in-law peered at the file and nodded with satisfaction, avoiding my gaze and focusing only on the documents. There, you see, Amelia. There's even proof. You really are a terrible person. That's why the payments stopped, out of spite. You got angry because I called you a freeloader, so you wanted revenge. Amelia, I'm not blaming you. I'm just stating the facts, David said. The monthly expenses, the clean house, the food in the fridge, the furniture. You might think that's normal, but have you ever thought about what I sacrificed for that? I turned down drinks after work. I cut back on hanging out with friends. All for the family. Even in that small apartment, I did everything to make you comfortable. Fixing the AC, dealing with the window condensation, installing soundproofing. I handled all of it. David's words were filled with details, an attempt to make his story credible through concrete examples. His mother nodded along, seemingly with tears in her eyes. He continued, "So I hope you can imagine how insulting the words unemployed are to me. I thought I was protecting you from the outside world. Social standing, insurance, future financial stability. I was shouldering all of it. And then you say, I don't have a job. Isn't that too cruel?" Well said, David. You've done nothing wrong. As a man, you did everything to protect your family. I can't let what she's done slide. After David finished, I brought out new documents, a folder with neatly organized tabs for different sections. In that case, take a look at these. I have some evidence of my own. The first thing I produced was a sample catalog from a printing press, one that looked exactly like the paper stock of David's business card. Details most people wouldn't notice. This is the business card David uses as a manager, right? But this paper, the font, the color of the logo, it's identical to this sample catalog. It's not an official card from his company, but one made at an ordinary print shop downtown. You can even see the order number. It was made at a small press, and the order was placed by David. The date of the order was May 15th of last year. Next, I pulled out a certificate of non-coverage from the Social Security Administration, an official document that is difficult to forge. And this is David's SSA certificate. I obtained it from the administration, and it proves he is not currently employed by any company. And this is his record from the state's Public Employment Service office. His ID number is clearly written. There's a record that he's been looking for a job for over a year. I saw David turn pale. His hands began to shake, and he avoided looking at the documents. Let's also look at the bank transaction history. The font and layout of the bank history David showed you are different from the official format. There are spacing errors, and the bank's logo is the wrong shade of blue. This is a real bank statement. The font type, the position of the header, it's all different. Yours, David, is a fake, made on a computer. My mother-in-law gasped, looking back and forth between the evidence in her hands. Her hands began to tremble, and she grew pale. Wait, this is all fake? This can't be true, right? David didn't answer, just kept his head down. Next, I opened an email on my smartphone. These are the billing notices for the utilities. All of them were sent to my email address. The name on the contract is mine. The rental agreement is also in my name. David is only listed as a guarantor. And this is my proof of income. Even working from home, I have formal contracts with various companies, and I file my income taxes. Last year, my annual income was $135,000, enough to support both of us. As my mother-in-law looked at the evidence one by one, David finally looked up, his face full of shock. He probably never imagined I would investigate him so thoroughly. David's web of lies was well constructed, but because of my work as a translator, I've become sensitive to the details in documents, the difference in fonts, the small layout errors. I'm used to finding nuances in meaning between languages, so it's second nature for me to spot the difference between fake and real, especially with legal documents and official records. Those aren't easy to forge. In a world where one wrong letter can change the entire meaning, I've trained myself not to miss these things. When I first felt something was wrong, I started to investigate. At first, it was just a hunch, but over time, it was confirmed. I saw the files for creating fake documents in his computer history. I heard him secretly working on them at night. The sudden closing of his browser. By slowly gathering the evidence, the full picture of his massive deception came into view. Even with the clear evidence, my mother-in-law seemed unable to comprehend the situation. Or perhaps she didn't want to. I couldn't blame her. She thought I was the liar, but the truth was, it was her own son. That's a hard pill to swallow. But David goes to work every day, in a suit, carrying a briefcase. I see him. Have you ever thought about what he does after he leaves? He could be spending time at the library or a coffee shop. Wearing a suit and leaving the house doesn't mean he's working. The clothes are a kind of mask, a way to create an image. When you wear a suit, you look like you're working. When you carry a briefcase, you look like an employee. In that way, he was also deceiving himself. By pretending to go to work every day, he maintained the illusion that he was still a professional. A heavy silence filled the room. I could almost hear the collapse of the reality they had believed in. Looking at my mother-in-law's bewildered face, I brought out one more document, a thick file labeled Loan Agreements. Even though I was prepared, I hesitated to show it, but there was no turning back. Please look at this. These are contracts from 4 different payday loan companies. His total debt is $8,200. I found these contracts in letters addressed to David. He hid the monthly collection letters and statements of account in his desk drawer. One day, while cleaning, I accidentally found them. Because of that, I also noticed the notifications on his phone and the calls from collectors when he wasn't around. His call history had many unknown numbers, and when I checked, they were all from lending companies. There were also letters that arrived at the house addressed to me, results of loan applications I never made. It turned out to be David's attempt to take out loans in my name. My mother-in-law slowly took the file. Her hands were shaking. She struggled to turn the pages. David just stared at the floor. What is this? Lending companies? You're borrowing money? Are you kidding me, David? What is this? Why would you borrow from places like these? Those are all copies of the real contracts. I also have printouts of emails and photos of the originals. All of them are signed by David. The first contract is from almost 2 years ago, and the last one is just 3 months old. And what's worse, I also found these documents. A draft of a loan application using my name and personal information. I found it in a folder on the laptop I use for work. I also have the rejection notices that were sent to me. He was trying to borrow from lending companies using my name without my knowledge. My mother-in-law gasped and grew even paler. As she flipped through the pages, tears began to form in her eyes. She was struggling to accept the truth. David, what is this? This isn't true, is it? She asked. David just bowed his head. His silence was an admission. His mother screamed, David, why? Why did you need so much money? Answer me. Don't you have a good job? Aren't you a manager earning $150,000 a year? It's all true, he finally whispered. I'm not with the company anymore. It's been over 1.5 years. I took a voluntary retirement package. I can't go back there. Liar. Weren't you at a major logistics firm? You were great at sales and were about to become a branch manager. I just applied for the voluntary separation package because of downsizing. I said it was for a career change, but the truth is, I couldn't stay with the company anymore. I was part of the layoffs. My performance dropped, and I couldn't keep up. After that, I started looking for a job. But being in my late 30s with experience at only one company, I always failed the initial screening. Even from a big company, it turns out we weren't valued that highly, especially with the tough economy. I also applied to agencies for short-term contracts in logistics and admin support, but I couldn't handle it mentally. I didn't last long. I couldn't accept that my colleagues or my bosses were younger than me. As he explained in detail, it seemed he was finally confronting his situation. His speech became more fluid, as if he was releasing everything he had bottled up. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for my help? I might have been able to do something. How could I tell you I was laid off? I know how high your expectations are for me, Mom. Since I was a child, you always said, David is different. David can do it. You would brag to the neighbors and relatives that your son was a manager at a big company. How could I tell you I was fired? My mother-in-law was speechless at her son's words. Tears began to stream down her face. I lost hope of finding a job. Time just passed. 6 months, then a year of being unemployed. At first, I used my savings for expenses, but my savings before we got married were minimal. I started using credit cards until the debt grew and grew. In the end, I borrowed from various lending companies, and it reached almost $50,000. Since I had no income, I couldn't pay. I just kept extending the due dates and making minimum payments. Meanwhile, I lied to Amelia that everything was fine, that I even got promoted. I always said I was the one supporting the family. I called her a freeloader. And every day, I added, just as I suspected, you were passing the time at the library or a coffee shop, opening your laptop and pretending to work. Sometimes I was really looking for a job, but most of the time I just sat there. When I came home, I'd act exhausted. And while he was doing that, I was working at home. Even from home, I was in front of a computer for over 8 hours a day. I took every job I could to support our family. But you never acknowledged that, ma'am. I had been thinking about divorce long before you handed me that petition. So, that's why. That's why you said you were thankful when I gave you the papers. David's lies and his attempts to destroy my reputation are unforgivable. But I think you also bear some responsibility, ma'am. Handing me that divorce petition on his behalf is a prime example of your excessive interference. I'm sure you've always been like that with him. The heavy burden of having to meet his mother's expectations. He feels that constantly. The fear that if he fails, his own mother will disown him. The fear that if you found out he was unemployed, you would no longer recognize him as your son. Isn't it possible that's what pushed him into this situation? My mother-in-law's jaw tightened, and there was anger in her eyes, but she had no answer. Her fists were clenched tightly on the table. David has his own responsibility for his mistakes. The lying, the debt, and the attempt to use my name. That's all his fault. But it's undeniable that there was psychological pressure from you, forcing him to be the perfect son. This is the result. As I spoke, I felt a complex mix of emotions inside me. Not just anger, not sadness either, a kind of understanding. I wanted to blame David, but I could also see the situation that pushed him, the small lies that led to bigger lies until he was deceiving himself. That was his weakness, but it was also a result of the environment he was in. Over the past year, there were many times I felt something was wrong. The strange smells, the odd hours he came home, but I never said anything. Trust, sometimes, means turning a blind eye. Maybe that's what allowed his lies to grow. The three of us sitting here have all lived according to our own beliefs. Who is right? Maybe no one. But the path we choose from now on, I want it to be the right one. I just wanted my son's happiness. What's wrong with that? Perhaps. But the definition of that happiness, wasn't it you who said it? Not happiness for David, but the happiness of the son you wanted him to be. True love isn't about control, but support, isn't it? What do you know? My generation, what I've been through, you wouldn't understand. I grew up believing the man works outside, and the woman takes care of the home. That was normal back then. My mother, my grandmother, they were all like that. A woman's happiness was in her family. A son's success was his mother's honor. That's how I was raised. After I got married, my life was the same. David's father. He was a good provider, but different at home. Womanizing, money problems. But I endured it all for the family, because I thought that was a woman's role. Her voice softened, and she looked off into the distance. David looked shocked, perhaps hearing his mother speak this way for the first time. In the midst of all that, my son's success was my only achievement. To be able to boast to relatives, neighbors, and friends that my son was at a good company, that he was moving up, that was my honor. David was my everything. That's why I gave you the divorce petition. Not because I look down on you, but because I believe that if my son can't make the right decisions, it's my duty as a mother to guide him. I didn't want to admit I was wrong. I took a deep breath. I decided to speak with understanding, not anger. Learning about my mother-in-law's past and David's weakness had changed my perspective. This was no longer about winning or losing, but a tragedy born from long-standing family issues. I understand your beliefs, your love for your son, That's normal for a mother. But protecting someone should come with trust. Because you trust, you can watch over them. Because you trust, you can give them the strength to stand on their own 2 feet. Because you trust, you can give them the chance to get back up, even if they fall. As a translator, I also think about the meaning of protecting a text. To protect the original meaning, sometimes you have to change the words. You need to understand the culture and context to convey the true message. It's not enough to just swap words. Saying, "Do this, I'll take care of it," sounds like support. But in reality, you're taking away a person's strength. You thought you were protecting David's future, but you were actually taking away his chance to choose, to make mistakes, and to get back up on his own. Everyone fell silent. I didn't know if they understood what I said, but they listened. That was a huge change. A family isn't about enduring together. It should be based on communication and responsibility. Otherwise, it's just a prison. I don't want to play house anymore. I want to choose a relationship based on real trust. I'm not challenging your beliefs, ma'am. Every generation has its own way of life. But my belief is that you shouldn't control a person, but walk alongside them. There's no reason for me to stay here anymore. In their silence, I felt they understood. It had become a dialogue, not a fight. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of peace. All the resentment, anger, and sadness seemed to wash away with the clarity of speaking the truth and facing it. I don't want any more lies. In a world where you can't even have one letter wrong, I understand the weight of David's lies. It's a matter of how you live your life. A relationship built on lies will eventually collapse. I remembered my days with David. There were happy moments, but maybe it was all just a sandcastle. A real relationship starts with accepting each other's weaknesses. David couldn't do that, and maybe I couldn't either. We were just pretending to be a perfect couple. I'm scared of the future, but my hope is greater. The freedom to live with my own voice and my own strength. A return to myself. In the silence of David and his mother, I slowly stood up. I had said everything. I picked up my bag. From now on, I would walk my own path. I will continue my work as a translator. I already have regular contracts with a few companies, and I plan to improve my skills. I want to be a bridge between the United States and other countries. I hope you too, David and his mother, will move on with your lives. Choose to walk with the truth, not with lies. I believe that is what will bring true happiness. They didn't speak, they just nodded. We all understood that our paths were now different. As I was putting on my shoes at the door, I heard footsteps behind me. It was David. His eyes were red. I know I can't turn back time, but from now on, I will live honestly. I won't lie anymore. I will face reality, no matter how hard it is. I learned that from you. Your honesty, your hard work, and your ability to stand on your own 2 feet. You were always like that. I didn't have that kind of strength, so I relied on lies, but that's over. I want to stand on my own 2 feet. This is my last promise to you. Thank you for everything, and I'm sorry. I paused but didn't turn around. I didn't know what to say yet. David, thank you. I accept what you said. Our paths are separate now. I hope this will be a new beginning for you too. Live a life without lies. That will be the greatest relief for me. After saying that, I left. The wind caressed my cheek. The petals from the crepe myrtle trees were falling, as if to say a new season was beginning. The road ahead of me is long, and I don't know what awaits, but that's okay. I will take it one step at a time, with my own feet, my own decisions, on my own path. Claire, from now on, I'm living here too. And of course, you have no right to refuse. If you don't like it, you can always divorce my son. She had just shown up with her luggage, announcing she was moving in. Normally, I would have been furious, but instead, I gave her a wide smile. Are you sure? Thank you. In that case, I'll be leaving right now. My mother-in-law froze, her mouth agape. She probably expected me to cry and fight, or at least argue. Ma'am, you're the one who has no right to refuse. This house is in my name, and I'll be the one showing you out. Wait, hold on. That's not what I meant, she said, frantically waving her hands, trying to take back her words. I ignored her and opened the closet, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing. That was just a joke. I was kidding. Don't take it so seriously. As I busied myself with packing, my mother-in-law followed me around in a panic. I just kept going. What are you doing? Are you really serious? When she finally realized her words were becoming reality, her tone changed. I zipped up the suitcase and finally faced her. You're the one who told me to leave. I'm just following your orders. Besides, I've been planning to divorce Ethan for a while now. The papers are already being processed. The expression on my mother-in-law's face turned to stone. The difference between my reaction and her expectation was so vast that she was left speechless, sweating and breathing heavily. What are you talking about? Did Ethan do something wrong? Ethan is having an affair. What? Impossible. My son would never do that. I expected that reaction. Her blind faith in her son was pathetic. I have proof. Would you like to hear my story? My mother-in-law fell silent and sank onto the sofa. I sat down across from her. It all started 2 months ago when Ethan was assigned to a long-term project in another state. Why me? There are plenty of other people, he complained while packing. The company's decision was sudden. It was supposedly an important project. He looked exhausted. I remembered he had been coming home late often. Ethan worked for my father's company, and Dad had said, I want to give Ethan more responsibility for the future of the company. Maybe he wanted to test him. This is a great opportunity. Do your best, I said. Yeah, was his short reply. The next day, I drove him to the airport. Be safe, I said. He looked at me with a hint of hesitation. I never thought that would be our last morning as a normal married couple. A week after he left, I noticed something was off. The daily texts became rare. He stopped answering my calls. Sometimes he wouldn't even see them. When he did answer, it was brief. I'm busy. I'll call you later. I told you I'm busy. I can't be calling all the time, he'd say irritably. He was clearly annoyed. Maybe he knew I was starting to suspect something. Even over the phone, I could feel his panic. At first, I tried to convince myself he was just busy with work, but there were too many strange behaviors. Whenever I called, he'd hang up, saying he had a meeting. He said he might come home for the weekend, but then would suddenly cancel. Most of all, the warmth was gone from his voice. Ethan, are you seeing someone else? I asked him on the phone. His reaction was more intense than I expected. After a moment of silence, he exploded. What? You're just going to accuse me out of the blue with no basis? I can't believe you. He was the one who got angry and blamed me. This is why I can't stand you. You're so needy. I'm tired from work, and you question where I've been, who I was with. Even if I just have a drink with friends, you investigate. You try to look at my phone. It's suffocating. A man needs his freedom too. Besides, why would I cheat? I have a wife like you. Why would I risk it? You have no trust. I didn't expect him to blame me like that. I never nagged him. In fact, when he came home late, I'd say, you must be tired from work. What he was saying was the opposite of the truth. He was trying to make me look like the bad guy. His reaction only made me more convinced. A few days later, I received something unexpected in the mail. If you're going to be so suspicious, then here, do what you want. It was an envelope sent via FedEx. Inside was a signed divorce petition. It came with a short note. Are you happy now? I quietly put the divorce petition in a drawer. I didn't know then that it would become my weapon. The next day, I remembered that Mr. Davies, a trusted employee at the company, was in the same city as Ethan. Mr. Davies was trusted by my father, and I had worked with him for a long time. Because he was decent and honest, I knew he would be objective. Hello, Mr. Davies. Can we talk for a moment? What is it, Mrs. Henderson? Ethan has been very cold to me lately. I was wondering if you knew anything over there. Though embarrassed, I told him the truth. I had no one else to turn to. Of course, ma'am. I'll try to keep an eye out. I'll let you know right away if I notice anything. I felt a surge of relief. If I found out something, I would know what to do. I wanted to know the truth. A few days later, Mr. Davies called. Even though I had a hunch, the news he delivered was still painful. Ma'am, this is difficult to say, but last night, I saw Ethan with a female employee from a partner company. After they had dinner, they went into the woman's condo. I gasped, but forced myself to remain calm. Thank you. Do you have any proof? I took some pictures. I can send them to you if you'd like. Yes, please. Send them. A few minutes later, the photos arrived on my phone. My whole body went cold. I saw Ethan with his arm around a young woman, happily entering a condo. He was in a suit, his hand on her waist, laughing, an expression I had never seen on him. The woman is from the marketing department of our partner company. According to the staff here, they're often seen together, Mr. Davies added. Everything became clearer. This wasn't a one-time mistake. They were in a relationship. Okay. Thank you so much. After the call, I stared at the photos for a long time. I took the divorce petition from the drawer. The very thing he sent to intimidate me had become my weapon. My decision was made, and that's what happened. I finished. My mother-in-law was stunned. Impossible. My son, she stammered. I continued calmly. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I've organized the evidence. I've also told my father everything, and he has decided to fire Ethan immediately. Fire him? The testimony and photos from Mr. Davies have already been submitted. As the president's son-in-law, a scandal like this is a huge problem for the company's reputation. My father prioritizes the company over family. I showed her the photo on my phone. My mother-in-law covered her mouth. All I need to do now is confront Ethan, show him the evidence, and file the divorce petition. My mother-in-law was speechless. Her previously bold demeanor was replaced by fragility. I stood up and grabbed my suitcase. Ma'am, thank you for coming here and telling me to leave. Because of this, I can now move forward without any hesitation. When I turned back, my mother-in-law was still frozen in place. That must have been the moment she realized her son's future, and her own position, was in jeopardy. I opened the door and stepped outside. One step towards a new life. Claire, wait, let's talk, I heard her say. But I didn't stop and pressed the elevator button. As the doors closed, I saw her stunned face. In that moment, our situations had completely reversed. On my way to a condo owned by my father, I wondered where I went wrong. Before we were married, Ethan wasn't like this. I thought he was kind and faithful. He grew up in a single-parent home, and I admired his diligence. We met at one of my father's company parties. He was a new employee then. Everything went smoothly until we got married, but slowly, he changed. It started with small lies. My relationship with his mother also deteriorated. What was once "thank you for marrying my son" became condescending treatment. Ethan never intervened. He always sided with his mother. "She's just looking out for me, honey. You should be grateful," he would say. I endured it all. Now I remember my father warning me several times. "Claire, are you sure about Ethan? There's something off about his behavior at the office." Maybe my father had noticed something long ago. When I arrived at the condo, I put down my suitcase and looked outside. The city lights of Chicago sparkled below. I looked at the picture of the divorce petition on my phone. Tomorrow, I would file it and start a new life. A week passed. One afternoon, the intercom buzzed. On the monitor, I saw Ethan and his mother. How did they find my address? "Who is it?" "Claire, it's me. I want to talk." I opened the door. Ethan looked pathetic. "How did you find my address?" "I hired a private investigator. I was worried about you." I wanted to laugh. Worried? Or just a stalker? No. "I need you. I lost my job. You're all I have left. What do you need?" "Let us in first." After thinking for a moment, I let them in. 5 minutes. "Claire, forgive me. It's true, I had an affair." "But there were reasons," he said. "Stress from work, the weight of your father's expectations, the pressure. It was just a one-time thing. It wasn't serious. And besides, I was lonely. You became so busy with your own work, you stopped paying attention to me. If you had just taken better care of me, this wouldn't have happened." The classic blame game. If you're only here to make excuses, you can leave. "Claire, can we still fix this? I promise it will never happen again." "Fix this? You're the one who gave me the divorce petition. I just accepted it. You told me to do what I want." "That was a joke." "I thought you would forgive me." "A joke. You always change what you say to suit you. I don't want to play your repetitive games anymore. Besides, we're legally divorced. I filed the petition you signed." "What?" Beside him, his mother suddenly stood up, furious. "What are you talking about? My son is apologizing. This is your fault. Besides, all men are like that. You're so petty to get a divorce over something so small. You're a worthless wife. Ma'am, be quiet. This is my house. You can't dictate my life." "How dare you? You're the reason my son got fired. I curse you!" She screamed and threw a vase on the floor. "I will never forgive you. I hated you from the start because you're the president's daughter. You look down on me." After about 3 minutes, the police arrived. Someone had reported a disturbance. I explained the situation. They were taken to the station for questioning and warned not to approach me again. At the end of that week, my father called. "Claire, I have a report from the accounting department about Ethan and his mother. They were declaring fake expenses, forging receipts, and faking business trips. They stole a significant amount of money from the company. It seems they've been doing it for a long time." Another revelation. Not just a cheater, but a thief too. I immediately reported it to the police. They were to be arrested for embezzlement. "Forgive me, honey. I was wrong to trust him. It's not your fault, Dad. He fooled all of us. No, it's still my responsibility. But you, my daughter, you've been so strong. I'm proud of you." The following days were like the calm after a storm. I heard Ethan was convicted but received probation. He had lost everything and was deep in debt. His mother, on the other hand, had a stroke from the stress and became bedridden. They became a problem in their community. 6 months passed. One afternoon, we crossed paths. Ethan was disheveled, and his mother was on a cane. "Claire, help us. We can't go on," Ethan said, crying. "Ethan, we're strangers now," I replied. "Forgive us," his mother said. "I was jealous of you, of your family, your life. I felt like you took my son from me. I was wrong. I'm sorry. It's all over. From now on, I will live for myself. I'm not angry anymore, but our paths are different." I walked away and didn't look back. 3 more months passed. My father called me into his office. "Claire, I want you to take my place at the company. You have the intelligence, the resilience, and most importantly, the integrity. Mr. Davies himself recommended you." A year after that, I was sitting in the president's chair. One day, from my window, I saw construction workers on the building across the street. One of them was Ethan, thin, tan, but he looked peaceful. He was working quietly. I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not pity, nothing. "Madam President, here are the documents for the new project," said Mr. Davies, now the executive vice president. "Thank you, Mr. Davies. Let's take a look." I tore my gaze away from Ethan and focused on my work. The past was in the past. My life had long since moved on.